Once upon a time, in a country far away, friends and family could visit together whenever they wanted. The shops and pubs were open, children went to school, people travelled to work, and most importantly, everyone could shake hands, hug and kiss the ones they loved whenever they wanted to. Then came a global pandemic, a national lockdown. Things stopped like they had never done before. Children did not go to school. Many people worked from home, avoiding the trains and buses. Some people lost their jobs. Meetings and parties were cancelled. Pubs and restaurants were closed. The sun shone brightly that spring and summer, but nothing was normal. What were Wayfinderwoman to do? This local charity was founded specially to help women in difficult times, and yet what could the wonderful ladies from Wayfinderwoman do to help in this situation? Okay, so we could continue answering emails and phone calls and to run some online courses and meetings, but this didn't seem enough. Then inspiration struck. We had a wonderful idea. We would ask women to tell us their stories about how they were coping at this time of pandemic. All the contributions, whether stories, poems or pictures, would be put together in a book which would be published and distributed free of charge to all the contributors, public libraries and the local heritage centre. The book would be a historical document, a lasting testament to the time of pandemic and a family heirloom for those that had taken part. It was a surprise when over 100 items were submitted. Of course, nothing is free, and Wayfinderwoman have been madly fundraising to cover the costs. Details later about how you can donate to this wonderful book. But in the meantime, here is part of one of our fantastic stories.
An extract from Jade Powers, an entertainer and singer who has a production company called the Broadway Players. Now you would think that would be all, wouldn't you? No, my health also comes into play. Sadly, a regular stonemaker, due for surgery in March, cancelled, and no sign of that happening yet. So day by day the pain increases. If any of you understand this, it is worse than childbirth. Thank goodness it's sunny and I like to read. 7 books into the summer, enjoying the sunshine, manicuring my garden to perfection. Then a friend asked, would you like to sew for the NHS? Oh, something to relieve the boredom. Yes, please. So on the journey I go starting with masks, gowns, isolation gowns, scrubs and hats. I'm loving every second and getting better and better. The ladies at the NHS hub make my confidence grow each week, praising my stitching. So I decide to rebrand myself as Zippy, the singing seamstress, and I have not looked back. I have made over 500 masks for sale, skirts and other items, so lockdown has given me a new business to compensate. Whilst this is also going on, I still found time for 10 weeks to do concerts in my garden every Saturday night, with my lovely hubby as a special guest on my Tina Turner and country show, entertaining the neighbours and having a lot of fun. On VE Day, we had a socially distanced street party and invited all the people from the surrounding roads. Of course, I still have days where I am so sad that this is happening, and with no directive from the government about our industry. It is indeed a very scary time, but out of the ashes rise a phoenix, so they say. To all of you who've had a difficult and different journey to mine, I send you my love and strength to get through the tough times. In the words of Gloria Gaynor, we will survive.
Hello, my name's Helen and I'm here to tell you about my painting of irises. The irises blossomed in the garden in the spring and were absolutely glorious. So I took my sketchbook outside and did some quick drawings and then hurried in, stretched some paper and started my ink painting. I paint with coloured inks and writing ink, which is soluble. So the outline was done with writing ink and then flooded the colour into the shapes, a bit like stained glass. Iris is particularly good because Iris is the goddess of the rainbow, and the rainbow is full of hope for the future and also the symbol of the national health. So the painting means something very special in a different way too.
Hello, I'm Tracy and I'm here to talk about the Women in Lockdown fundraising project, which we named the Magnificent Seven. The first day we decided that the theme would be the seven wonders of the ancient world. And in order to fulfill that, we came up with the idea of having hats from the ancient wonders of the world. So the one I wore, which you're going to see here, is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. And these were all made by my neighbour Bill, who I will pass you over to, because they were all handcrafted by him. And he spent hours and hours making all seven. Okay.
Now this is where we started, which is ordinary cereal box. The base of this is in fact the same width as the cereal box itself. That dictated the size of this box, which contains the helmet portion that fits over the head. So that's the first thing that's made. Then on top of that we've got a broader base which will carry the actual hanging gardens. It's made in similar fashion, which is a lot thinner of course, but it's slightly larger in area. Then we come to the section here, which is another box. That's again made same way as a cereal box and glued onto that. And then we come to the architectural bits. Firstly, these pavilions. These are made from a basic template like this, which is then cut with these tabs all the way round. That's folded round and glued like so. Then we have a ceiling put on it, square on there, a base glued on it onto the tabs underneath. So we've then got a rigid box which makes up this pavilion. And that's the basic structure. And there are 8 of these small ones and one large one in the centre, which is slightly more elaborate because that's the central feature which forms the culminating dome. Then we take this, which is strap work. Now that forms the string courses and these cornices which run around these things. So this will be then applied to the top of these pavilions so that it gives an architectural finish. And they can be sometimes projecting a bit more than others, so that these projections here are actually given strap work underneath, and then on top of that there will be a square glued onto that again, so that you get a cornice effect. Then on this particular central one, it's a bit more elaborate. We've got finials which are applied around the dome. The dome itself is made up rather like the segments of an orange, so that you get a series of half-round pieces of cardboard all glued together radially, and then, rather like the gauze on a globe, the gold is applied on the top of that, so you get the dome with the gold finish. And finally a finial which is added on at the very top. The actual greenery, the palm trees here, these are made by taking a strip of green card. It's then wrapped around several times into a cylinder. That is then cut so that you get these sharp edges all the way along, around, and then when these are glued in place as a cylinder, the sharp tops are then curled around, which gives this palm tree effect. So they're opened out like a flower, so that gives you a palm finish. And that's how those are then placed on the top of the pavilions. And finally, we've got the little add-ons like the hanging bits themselves, which are these little bits here, which are actually formed out of hole punch extras, which have been done in various colours so that they stand out rather like flowers will on a vine. And the final finish of the parapets, these stepped parapets are added on the steps, which are, again, this is glued in with this triangular section here, which then has underneath it steps cut out so that we can then apply paper to the steps. So those are applied. And then finally a little embellishment of the potted plant in the centre, just to give the humorous touch.
A poem for Mila Hope Windsor, born 21st of March 2020 and emerging into the world in lockdown. A Nana's story. The world was in lockdown the day you were born. Struck down by a virus, families' hearts would be torn. New headlines were scary, anxieties high, and life as we knew it was stopped to comply. Politicians took charge, shops, schools, they were all closed. We all watched our TV, scared of what they proposed. The world's cities deserted, displayed on our screen, a global pandemic, like of which we've never seen. Our NHS service was stretched to the core, and us stuck at home, we'd clap at the door. To show our support for key workers so brave, our front line determined to preserve life over grave. Yet into the madness you arrived at this time. Your mum and dad's world isolated meantime. We'd video call and chat, keeping away was a struggle, when all we wanted was to give you a cuddle. We'd peer through the window to see your sweet smile and promise each other it's just for a while. You'll learn one day soon just how much you're adored. As we come out of lockdown, fresh hope now restored. We'll hug and we'll dance, make the most of each day and never forget those sacrificed on the way. As we return to the new normal, I hope and I pray, as you grow you'll remember when a rainbow's displayed, that community matters, and I hope it will still, as you look back in history when the world just stood still.
Let me tell you about a piece of sewing that's included in the book. Julie French, a Brighton-based textile artist and teacher, created this as part of the Bayou Tapestry project organised by Stitches in Time, a London community arts group. Julie stitched a small square telling the story of her life in lockdown. Look out for different techniques that she's used, including applique, machine stitching and hand stitching. You can see how she's stitched the lockdown word using a sort of satin stitch, and there's very decorative stitches applied to her yoga position, which takes up the middle of the picture. Also, there's pictures of the masks and the scrubs bag that she made. On the masks it says PPE and one says negligence. The scrub bag says mutual aid, so that's another sort of little thing to look for. There's the cat on the laptop. Lovely to see that women can employ different creative ways to share their lockdown experiences through stories, poems and artwork.
August stories must have an end, but we still require some funds to pay for the publication of our book. So please go to our website, www.wayfinderwoman.com, to find our donate button on the Women in Lockdown section. Then we can end our story and live happily ever after.